Hi, my name is Steve Dietman, and I'm a member of the Spencertown Academy's Art and Gallery Committee. Because the pandemic has made it impossible for you to come to us, we created Artists at Home to bring the work and thoughts of regional artists to you. Today we're delighted to present the artwork of John Clarke. He's a multi-talented artist whose studio is currently located on the banks of the Housatonic River in Housatonic, Massachusetts. Hey John, how you doing?
Hi Steve. Glad
Good.
you could come.
Thanks a lot. I'm looking forward to it.
All right.
John Clarke is a man of many voices. He's an accomplished musician, writer, and of course a visual artist. Today we will take a look at his artwork and hear from him how his music and writing influences artwork and vice versa. Different voices, but one source. He and his partner Liz Hogan and their 2 children have lived in the Berkshires for many years. During that time period, John has worked from several studios in the South County area. Recently, he and a friend and fellow artist found a loft space in the old Country Curtains building, part of the mill complex in Housatonic. The building has recently been renovated as a home to artists, furniture makers, musicians, and other artisans in the area. On this beautiful mid-April day, we got together to talk about the evolution of his work, his new studio, as well as some of his artistic influences and thoughts. John, how did you wind up in this amazing studio space?
Well, it's a long story and we'll keep talking about it, but the beginning of it was when my partner Liz and I moved to Housatonic back in the fall of 2013, before my son Orrin was born. He was born while we were there in spring of 2014.
Right.
Our bedroom window faced north. You can see the 2 triangles, the 2 gray roofs poking up right above the train bridge. That was where we lived, on the top floor, and our bedroom faced looking at this mill, and I shot thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures from that bedroom window because the view was this absolute quintessential New England mill town. You had the tracks running through, you had mills, you had the river, you had the water tower sticking up above, you had the mountain cutting down. It was just an absolute, it was like if you wanted to build a little model railroad thing, you couldn't have done it better. And I was obsessed.
It's really true. When I found this town, I thought I discovered some Shangri-La.
Yeah.
You know, out of nowhere it appeared. It's that kind of town.
And at that point, this was the Country Curtains mill.
Right.
And I never dreamed of actually having a studio, but it's funny, I did this entire series of what I called A View from My Window of Housatonic, and this mill was front and center in every single shot. Every single shot, no matter the weather, no matter the time of day, it was always the mill.
The studio always winds up being important. It really does.
Yeah.
So this is inside, huh?
Yeah, the mill has 4 floors. This is the first floor, which I think actually just got rented. This little empty space, big open space here.
Do you know when it was last an active mill?
Boy, I thought that the Country Curtains closed within the last, I want to say 2 years maybe.
Right.
Yeah, I think about 2 years ago, maybe a little bit more.
Oh, this was Country Curtains, right?
Yeah.
Now we're on your floor, John. Tell me about your neighbors. And
we're on the 2nd floor right now, which is great. I have very few neighbors. Down at the end, there is a silk screening business. We've got a communal space. Someday this will be a communal space. Right now it's storage of some of the old stuff that Country Curtains left behind.
Right.
Huck is studio manager here, so she's got this space. And we've got, I don't know, maybe 10 more studios down the halls that are all waiting to be renovated and rented.
Right.
So right now, other than us and Huck and Moho Design, we're pretty much by ourselves.
So now we're right at the entrance to your studio. Let's go on in.
So one of my dreams has always been to have a studio space where I can work on my writing, work on my music, and work on my visual art all in one space.
As you know, I met you about 20 years ago when I moved to the Berkshires, and you were, at that point, primarily a musician. You were the frontman, songwriter, and lead singer for Bell Engine, quite a successful band in this area. And the next thing I knew, you were doing art. Can you tell us a little bit about that transition?
Yeah, it wasn't so much a transition. From my 20s, 30s, I was writing stories. I was doing visual art, and I was playing the acoustic, writing songs and singing. I was always doing that 6 months bursts, 8 months burst, a year burst, but everything was always in the back burner. And it was when I got involved with, when Sohn Fine Art in Lenox started representing my work, it gave my visual art some traction. And neither my writing nor my music had that kind of energy behind it.
So John, I can see your multidisciplinary approach. Tell us a little bit how each of those disciplines interacts with one to another, and also how they affect each other in your world.
Well, I've always drawn. Since I was a little kid, I drew. In college, I fell in love with classical music and ended up freshman year going from a chemistry major through a number of majors and finally graduating with a degree in classical music composition. Classical music, especially classical music being written now, continues to completely inform my visual art, my drawing. My abstract drawing is always done to classical music. Interestingly, the music that I make has very little to do with that classical study and very little to do with my visual art. And my writing is based mostly around my experiences hopping freight trains. So many incredible things happened during that 2-year period, and so that's been a vein that I've been mining for stories for a long, long time.
When you decided to throw yourself fully into the visual arts, what were the influences? Who were the people that you'd always admired or were inspired by their work, and how did they affect the work?
Well, I was inspired by 3 artists really before I had done any work of my own. Van Gogh was a giant for me very, very early on, mainly because he was self-taught, as was I. I never took I drew in high school, but in college I never took any painting or drawing classes. So Van Gogh learning to do it was impressive to me, and his work is just so viscerally, especially his late work, it's so beautiful.
That word autodidact is such a great word. You taught yourself, you know?
Yeah. And then Picasso, because he invented 5 or 6 genres. Yeah. So the fact that so many artists have this one vision that they work their whole lives toward, and he just defined a bunch. And so that kind of variety, the power of just pure inspiration and reinventing, that was huge for me. And Cy Twombly, with his infantile line and his complete disregard of critics and being able to work at this almost primal level, I've always loved the drawing of little kids. And when I saw his work being taken seriously as a real artist, that opened up a floodgate for me, gave me permission to do something that I always wanted to, but didn't quite know how to step into. I
have a quote from Picasso that ties it all together. And Picasso said the only people that he wanted to be friends with as he got older were people who were doing what they wanted to do as children. And that ties together the Cy Twombly quote and Picasso too. Yeah. So in the room here, can you point me towards something that was from that era?
Yes, this large piece right here. It's part of a 15-piece series that I did over the course of 2007. In 2006, I was living alone in North Adams between jobs, and a frame shop in Great Barrington got in touch with me and said, "Hey John, we're desperate. We heard you're a good framer. Can you come down and see if you want to work for us?" And it was on Railroad Street, and the woman owned the building, and she offered me a room upstairs, which was large enough for me to have all 15 pieces of paper on the wall at the same time. And during the 9 months I worked for her, I did this series. I call it the Alina series because it was done entirely to one CD for 9 months, called Alina by Arvo Pärt. And Pärt's music has been a huge influence on my drawing. And this was a real definitive series for me because not only was it my first big series, but it was the first time where I could work on multiple pieces at the same time, so I didn't have to put everything into one. I could see what I gravitated toward on any given day, and so they all developed their own character, and I was working out this personal hieroglyphic, these symbols that were almost like writing, almost like backward writing or lost writing, and I was also working through an illness, and I feel like I was able to just process all of that stuff going on over those 9 months into my first real personal, powerful series.
Tell us about each of these works a little bit,
Okay.
and it'll give us an insight into where you are now and what you've been up to.
Great.
Okay?
Yeah. So this is very typical of the work that I've been doing over the last 6 years. It is a combination of long exposure photography and drawing. I go out and shoot a long exposure, oftentimes at dusk, like I said, make that print, and then with pastel and colored pencil and graphite, basically begin an abstract dance with the music that I listen to. So this mark making is all a response to music, and choosing the music is oftentimes very, very hard. Focusing in on the mood of this piece. So this is very much a work in progress. I have no idea where these things are going to go, what the end is. Drawing like this, there's a lot of reflection and a lot of feeling like, is it balanced, is it ready? And oftentimes can take weeks to see the problem and to go back in.
John, it has been an absolute pleasure being in your studio. I know we have a couple more to look at, but I just had to say that. And I wanted to talk before leaving about this large piece over to my right and have you tell us a little bit about it and its influences.
All right. Well, this type of work is, again, a combination of long exposure photography and abstract drawing. And this particular one, I don't know if you can see here, but it's actually somewhat like a diptych or a triptych. It's actually the same image repeated a few different times with different crops printed out as one print. And so I started with one of the images from this series, which was just the long exposure without any drawing. I never wanted to draw on these because I thought that they were perfect on their own, but what I did was took one of these images in Photoshop, cropped out 3 sections of it, built it into a much larger print, printed that, and then that became the subject of an abstract drawing, again done to classical music. So you can notice here, like this is a birch grove here, it's repeated there. You get this little hint of the orange that shows up again there. So to me it feels a little bit like a Japanese folding screen. It also has this sort of repetitious quality, almost like when Warhol was doing the silk screens over and over of whether it was Marilyn's face or other icons' faces. The repetition allows me to explore different things in the same area of the drawing.
Can't leave without talking about this print I've seen over on your table, and I wonder if you could bring it over and set it up, because I'd like to really be able to show it, and it's...
So another thing that I've been drawn to in photography is shooting through rainy windows, the natural distortion, what raindrops can do to a subject when you focus on the window pane, focus on the raindrops, and let the actual subject matter in the background fall out of focus. You get these incredible organic lenses that just turn the blurry water tower in the background into this incredible dance of structure.
Sadly, this is the end, so I want to again thank you. And your work is beautiful, fascinating, intriguing, challenging, and I look forward to showing it to a lot more people.
Oh, Steve, I really appreciate it, and come back anytime.
Thanks so much. See you, John.